We're starting tonight's program with rowing, and although the teams that were due to come for the international event in Sunday's top race did not able to make it, pulling out at the 11th hour, there has, however, been a full program of races throughout the course of the weekend. On Friday saw the small boats events for single and double sculls and coxless pairs. Saturday's races saw a regatta for ladies, one for the outriggers for senior crews, and a veterans race, although in this one only one of the crews turned up, and that was the Calpe team. Then we had the main events on Sunday, the Forestier Walker for maidens, the Festival Cup for second crews, and the main event of the weekend, which was the Triai Challenge Cup for first crews. Let's have a look and see some of the action. So we start with Friday's races. These were all small boats events, in other words, for 1 or 2 oarsmen. They were one-off events and do not form part of the President's Small Boats League, which has been contested for in 5 other regattas during the season. So to the first of the races of the weekend, the single sculls, and incidentally some of these races were not without incident, and namely these was one of those where apparently towards the end there Stuart Bensadon of the MRC encroached on Leslie Gregg from the Calpe Rowing Club. You can see that both boats are quite close to each other, and an appeal was lodged because Bensadon apparently got too close in, but eventually the result stood and Stuart Bensadon won through in a time of 7:58.27. This over a 2,000-meter course. Leslie Gregg coming in just behind in a time of 8 minutes, 4 seconds, 23. So fortunately, what could have been a dodgy start to the weekend regatta, although there were appeals and counter-appeals, eventually passed off without further incident. Stuart Bensadon, one of the strongest oarsmen in current rowing circles, and he's been very successful over the last 4 or 5 years for Med Rowing Club. Leslie Gregg, one of the veterans and a very good single sculler. And there you have them both. And Leslie Gregg there just coming into the picture, making his appeal to the judges, but as I've mentioned, the result stood. On to the coxless pairs now, and Yates and Bensadon coming in for MRC, and the Calpe pair were Cavesuto and Edmund Bensadon. So here the Med pairing was too strong for Calpe, and they came in with a time of 7:35.38. Calpe's Cavesuto and Bensadon doing a time of 7:44.29. Again, incidentally, all these small boats were over a distance of 2,000 meters. At Liam Yates and Stuart Bensadon, again, they form half of the team of the very strong Med crew that has been very successful this season and indeed over the last 4 or 5. Again, a comfortable win for them. Calpe coming into the picture just now. So 2 wins out of 2 at the beginning of the rowing regatta weekend for Med. In fact, for the overall trophy that is given at the end of the season, the Garbarino Trophy, things were very, very close throughout the weekend, with Med just being a couple of points ahead at the start of this weekend's races. But things were to turn around slightly in the races that were to come following this one. Final look here now at these crews exchanging views after the race, and a tremendous effort before they make their way back to the clubhouse. And so on to the double sculls, and here Calpe were to emerge victorious with Leslie Gregg and Nicky Pryor doing a time of 7:40.78. And there were also 2 Med crews in this race, Rodriguez and Moreno and Haviland and Haviland. Rodriguez and Moreno came in second with a time of approximately 7:48.69. A very smooth action here by the Calpe pair, and this was to be the first of a number of wins for the Calpe club during the weekend. Approaching the finishing line now, and for those who are not in the know, incidentally, for most of these races, 5 points are awarded for a win and 3 for coming in second, and these are the ones that are total towards the Garbarino Trophy for the end of the season presentations. It's Med coming in second, and the third crew of Med, Haviland and Haviland, just out of picture. So the scene was now set up for Saturday's races with the bigger boats in crews of 4, and the first of these was the ladies regatta for the Norwich Union Challenge Cup over a distance of 1 mile and the Calpe ladies here were to emerge victorious. Indeed, both the first Calpe crew and second crew coming in first and second and getting much needed points for the overall trophy. But these Calpe ladies that were the winners, again, Davidson, Baglietto, Asopardi and Grech, coxed by Chiron Aquilina, did a time of 6:53.35, and although they lost the Saccarello Challenge Cup at the start of the season, they really have not looked back since, and they've been emerging stronger with each passing race. So well done to them, as well as for the Calpe ladies second crew. You see them coming in there now, and Med just coming into the picture in third place. It's been interesting to see how rowing has picked up a lot over the last 5 or 6 years for ladies, and it's certainly nice to see that it is taken very seriously by both clubs in the ladies section as well. And you just saw the Calpe ladies that came in second, and this, the winning crew, which I mentioned, of course, have gone on from strength to strength throughout the course of the season. And on to one of Saturday's main races for senior crews for the Galliano Challenge Cup. This is in outriggers, which is a craft that needs a lot more technique. I mean, you can get away with sheer raw power than rowing the Yolas, but this is a much narrower craft. And again, the Med crew proving to be very strong, as they have done throughout the course of the season. They came in with a time of 7:18.69. This crew now, in fact, has been unbeaten for a number of years, 4 or 5 approximately, and they're just too strong for whatever Calpe has to offer at the moment in terms of first crews. Crew of Moreno, Viñales, Yates, Bensadon, and coxed by Mark Hemi. In fact, it has been said in local rowing circles that this is possibly the strongest crew of all time in local rowing. They've broken 2 course records throughout the course of the season, one of them a couple of times over, and it's all the more the pity that they don't get enough international competition. In fact, this is true of all local rowing, when you consider that there's only 2 clubs rowing against each other all the time. And so on to Sunday morning, and the first of the races, the Festival Cup. This is for second crews. And again, Calpe here were to emerge victorious with a crew of Paul Peralta, Mark Elul, Barbara, Paul Jambies, and Cox Aquilina. Their time was 7:33.91, and Med coming in second place with a time of 7:40.84. There was a second Calpe crew there that came in third place. And some of these rowers, incidentally, were involved in an unfortunate tragic accident on Sunday afternoon off the dreaded black spot between Eastern Beach and Catalan Bay Road, and we wish them a speedy recovery. Next race on Sunday morning, the Forestier Walker. This is for maidens, crews that have never won the race before. And again, Calpe was successful with virtually the same crew as in the previous race. There was one change at number 4, Paul Jambies' place being taken over by Borge, but all the others were exactly the same crews. The time in a distance over 1 mile was 6:13.43. Here's Cox Aquilina raising his hands in triumph. And coming into the picture just now, the second Calpe crew, who came in second place to get much needed points, and a time of 6:24. Med came in third place with a time of 6:38. You can see them coming in now, way behind. And celebrations at the finishing line then for the 2 Calpe crews and the band of supporters, both at the North Mole and on the boats that follow the race traditionally. The final race of the weekend for the Triai Challenge Cup for seniors. This is in Yolas for a distance of 2,000 meters, and once again, the Met crew proving too strong. Whether it's outriggers or Yolas, as I've said before, this crew virtually untouchable, and everybody has said that they possibly are the strongest crew that has ever been seen in local waters. You can see their very strong finishing rate, hands raised again in triumph, and a very good time of 17:19.34. Calpe really have no answer at the moment with their first crew to challenge the Med. In the veterans race, only Calpe had 1 crew, but perhaps Gara could have allowed Med to enter a very late oarsmen to take part. But Brian Francis later gave me his views on the entire weekend. Well, Brian, this was supposed to be the showpiece weekend for your season, and you had teams from abroad that were due to come to the regatta, but unfortunately, in the end, disappointment, none of them turned up. What happened?
That's right. Unfortunately, we were due to have the same very good crews that we had from Oxford Brookes last year, and they had confirmed that they were coming, but they did very, very well at Henley Royal Regatta, and most of the oarsmen have been selected for the squad. The third crew, which was possibly able to come, unfortunately were disbanded. So that left us only with the two other invitees, which are the Portuguese club and the Spanish clubs. Neither of them could put up a team, possibly because it's a difficult time of the year. And unfortunately, we've ended up with a purely local competition.
Yeah, but in spite of that, though, Brian, you still managed to have 9 races throughout the course of the weekend. In one of these, however, the veterans, only one crew showed up for this. Could you explain what happened there, please?
Yes, it's unfortunate because it's always difficult to come up with enough veterans. Most of them are out of training, or at least not as fit as one would like them to be. But the MRC regrettably had one of their oarsmen away from Gibraltar, and they were unable to put a substitution from a person who was properly registered within the rules of GARA. So it ended up that the only one Culper crew turned up, and they just rode the course.
But finally, Brian, in spite of the difficulties, are you satisfied with the way the weekend's turned out for you?
Yes, I think so. I think, well, for a start, the weather has been very, very kind to us. We were able to do the small boats on Friday, and yesterday's, Saturday's, and today's, Sunday's rowing has been very, very good, very well competed for. Lots of entries and good, clean racing.
And so on with the presentations. GARA President Nigel Pardo, who's handing the awards there to the first awards of the morning. In his speech, said he'd been very pleased with the weekend's proceedings, somewhat disappointed that some of the international crews did not turn up, but also gave some controversial views as to why GARA do not wish Spanish crews to come over, because if they get the same treatment being given to Gibraltar crews not being allowed to compete in Spain, he felt that GARA should do likewise with Spanish crews. And here are the very successful Calpe first crew ladies. They've had an excellent season, as I mentioned earlier, apart from the initial hiccup of the Saccarello Challenge Cup. They've really been marvellous throughout, and they've gained in confidence and have put in some wonderful performances, always coxed by Aquilina. Med's very strong first crew just came to the picture. The veterans, who unfortunately did not have anybody to compete against, and some of the Calpe second crew, who, as I mentioned earlier, were involved in an unpleasant accident, but fortunately they're all doing well, and we all wish them a speedy recovery. This is the Forestier Walker Trophy, one of the most handsome trophies belonging to the Rowing Association, and one of the oldest competed for, although not the oldest. And again, I think something has to be said about this young man here, Coach Mark Hemy of the Med, who has coxed them successfully for quite a number of wins now, and I'd be interested to find out how many exactly, but certainly the whole crew there, I would call them the untouchables of local rowing scene.